everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video I'll be talking about the best books I've read in 2024. There are some books that I've given 5 stars to that you will not be seeing here, even though I talked so highly of them, but I decided to make this video just like my 6 star, like the best of the best. And so the first book I started with this year is actually one of the best books I've read this year, and that is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I was very intimidated by this book. As you can see, its size alone, it's very intimidating, it's very enjoyable. I really love the character of Count Rostov, I think his name is called. No, that's a different book. The Monte Cristo. I loved his character so much, and yeah, I adored this book. As you can see, I've tabbed and highlighted so many books in here, so many quotes in here, and I read this one for the Game of Thrones book club in the beginning of the year, last year, 2024 I mean, and I absolutely love this book. If you don't know this story, it's basically a revenge story about this count. Before he becomes a count, he is getting promoted in his job, and he's soon to be married to this girl he loves, and then some people in his life are very jealous of his life. They want to have what he has. They decide to trick him, and then as a result get him in jail. I love the scenes when he was in jail with the Rabbi Faria, or whatever his name was. I love that. And this is a book that it's been like exactly 1 year since I've started, and I'm still thinking about. And I know that there's a movie coming out, or maybe it already came out, but I haven't seen it yet. I'm very excited to see it, to see if it's actually done like in a good way. Although I really dislike this copy that I own, I really love this book. The next book I love this year is not really a book, but it's the Neapolitan Quartet. I read the first and the second book this year, and if I had to choose one of them, I would choose the second book, which is The Story of a New Name by Elena Ferrante. I adore this series. Like, I've only read these 2 books already, and it's so well done, it's so good. We're basically following these 2 best friends from the age of 5 until the age of 60. The first book, I'm going to talk about them in 2 together. The first book, we're seeing the son of Lila calling her friend Elena Greco to tell her that his mother has disappeared, and then Elena then just tells us their story, their friendship from the very beginning, from they were 5 years old until the point where I'm stopped. The second book, I think they are in 18 or maybe not, like maybe 20s or early teens. They have had so many hardships in their life. This story focuses so much more on class differences and politics, and it really is interesting. Like, I cannot talk about this book enough. I can't really explain it to you, because it has so many things in it, and it's so heartbreaking. You feel like the characters are a part of your life because they are so fleshed out and they feel like real people. And I really love this book, and I cannot wait to continue on with this series in 2025. Next book that I have in here is actually a surprise. I didn't think I was going to love this book as much as I did, and that is Rouge by Mona Awad. I read the Bunny by her a few years ago, and I did not like it, so I was a bit hesitant to pick up this book. But the topic was really something that I'm interested in, and that is beauty, specifically skincare. This book basically criticizes skincare and beauty industry, and we're following a woman who her mother died, and so she comes back into her hometown, and her mother was kind of being weird in her the days before she died, and our main character is obsessed with skincare. Has this elaborate skincare routine. She watches skincare content all the time. I kind of related to her, but not to that extent, and it was very interesting to follow. Like, she started like trying to figure out what happened to her mother, and then she goes to places that her mother used to go through, and things start becoming so weird. It felt like a fever dream. And I adored this book so much. Like, it was unexpected 5 stars, and I actually really love it. Even though I have read it a few months ago, I still think about it to this day, and it was very well done. Now I'm actually very interested in reading more from Mona Awad. Even though my first work by her wasn't the best, this one is definitely the best. This book I'm going to talk about is A Gentleman in Moscow by Immortals. I have seen this book everywhere on Instagram, but I have never seen it, like someone talk about it, what it actually is about. But for some reason it just kept pulling me, and I just decided to pick it up, and it was the best decision I've ever made. This book feels like a classic, like you're reading a classic, even though it is modern. We're following Count Rostov, which is the character, I have messed up the name before, who just came back to Russia from Paris, I think, and he gets into house arrest because he was living in a hotel, the Metropolitan Hotel. He gets arrested in there, so he spends the rest of his life in there. As soon as he gets out, he will get shot. And he meets, because it's a hotel, he meets so many different people, like people who work there, people who are visitors, and he strikes up so many different friendships. But the most memorable friendship is a friendship with a girl called Nina. She was maybe 6 years old or 9 years old at the time they met, and she is so full of life. She wants to know everything that is to know about everything, and she kind of brings him into her adventures as well, and their friendship just was so beautiful. And then it led on to so many things that I found so interesting and beautiful as well. So yeah, the ending as well was very nice, and I adored this book. The adaptation of it was really not that well done. The first episode was good, but then the second episode they just completely ignored the book, and it was just not good in my opinion. So I did not like the adaptation as much, but the book is definitely worth it. Next book on my list is a book that I've attempted to read a few years ago and I DNF'd it. This time it made it into my best of year, and this is If We Were Villains by Emma Rio. This book follows a bunch of friends in an arts conservatory where they study Shakespeare. All of the characters are messed up. All of them have secrets, and then our main character Oliver had just finished 10 years in prison, and he gets out, and the officer who persecuted him doesn't actually believe that he did it. He asks one last time to tell him if he is actually the killer, because there's a murder that happened 10 years prior. And then he goes on to tell the entire story from the very beginning, from their freshman year in this college until like the murder that happened, which is the last year. And the writing was so beautiful as well. Next on my list is a book that I also have already read before, but I did not love as much. I did like it, but not love it as much. This time it's one of my favorites, and this Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. This is, if you pick this book up, don't look up anything about it online, because I feel like anything you will know about it will be a spoiler. So I'm just gonna tell you like very briefly what it's about. This is about Kathy, our main character, she tells you in the beginning that she is a carer, and this is her last year being a carer. So basically, our main character Kathy has grown up in this prestigious institute called Hailsham, and the people like her really are kind of jealous of people who grew up in Hailsham, because Hailsham was the best in its time. And so she will follow in her life in Hailsham, her and her friend's life. She talks about all of that and them in the cottages, and then in real life in the end. And you're not supposed to know why she's a carer, who she is a carer for, but when you do know, actually it's very heartbreaking, and this book tells you what it really means to be human. Whenever I talk about this book, I always mention this quote. I read it out loud because I think this quote just is the perfect description of this book. Otherwise, I cannot say anything about it, and I cannot just tell you like it has beautiful writing. That's not enough to make anyone pick it up. So I'm just gonna read you this quote again, even though I have read it so many times before. I saw a new world coming rapidly, more scientific, efficient, yes, more cures for the old sicknesses, very good, but a harsh, cruel world. And I saw a little girl, her eyes slightly closed, holding to her breast the old kind world, one that she knew in her heart could not remain, and she was holding it and pleading never to let her go. This book was so heartbreaking, and that's why I really love it. Next on my list is the book that I just finished like a few days ago, is The Winners by Fredrik Backman. I adore Fredrik Backman's writing, and this is the last book in the Beartown trilogy. If you don't know what the Beartown trilogy is, it's basically about two rival towns, two hockey towns. Hockey basically affects everything in their life, and one day something happens to the daughter of the club's manager, and this divides the town into two. I really love how Fredrik Backman just does these character studies. Like, you don't feel like even though there are too many characters in this story, you don't feel like overwhelmed with them. And every character is completely fleshed out. You feel like they are real people. This is the third book in the story, and I think it's the best out of all the trilogy. And it was so heartbreaking in the end. I did not expect that ending, and it felt this was the book that nearly brought me into tears this year, and for that it deserves this spot in here. So yes, I do really love this series and Fredrik Backman's writing in general. So yeah, this was the perfect ending for the year and perfect ending for the trilogy. So next up on this list is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. It's a romance that starts in Reddit, where this guy posts something on Reddit saying that he has this curse that whenever he gets in a relationship with someone, they break up, that someone finds their forever partner. And then our main girl character, finds that Reddit post, and she comments saying that she has the same issue. So they decide to date each other and then break up so that they will find their forever partner, basically like curse each other so that it would work in their favor. And obviously they're going to date each other and fall in love with each other in the meantime. And the banter was very well. I just really love this book. It was fun to read. Speaking about romance, my other favorite book is Funny Story by Emily Henry, about this girl who is like preparing for her wedding to her fiance, and then her fiance cheats on her with his girl best friend in his bachelor party. So she obviously has to get out of the house. She can't stay with him, and she goes to live with the girl he cheated with's partner. She becomes his roommate, and obviously they create this the friendship at first, and then it turns into a relationship. These characters are completely different, like Miles and I forgot her name. They are completely different, and I really love their relationship, and I love this story as well. So these are all the books I loved in this year, but I'm going to talk about two honorable mentions, because these books were already favorites before the end of the year, and I reread them this year and they were still favorites. The first one is The Humans by Matt Haig. I read this book like many years ago, and it was one of my favorite books. I decided to reread it this year, and I'm going to tell you it's still one of my favorite books. If you don't know what this story is about, this is about a math teacher who finds the solution to this problem that people haven't been able to find solution to. But aliens think that humans are a little bit too dumb to have this much power in our life, so they'd kill that professor, the math professor, and then they send an alien to impersonate him and kill anyone who knows about this, or anyone who this professor has told about this. And so the first part of the story starts very humorous, because we're seeing this alien trying to adapt to human life. He's trying to understand like why people wear clothes, and the second part becomes more serious, because now that the alien knows what it really is to be human, have doubts on his mission on killing people who basically aren't harmful to anyone, just because they might know something that will hurt them in the future. And I found that I found this critique on humanity and everything so interesting, and this is still one of my favorite books. The next book that was also one of my favorite books, and I reread it, is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I reread this book in preparation for the adaptation that came out this year. I love the adaptation, by the way. It's about this physics professor who at a certain time in his life has made this decision, either follow his career or help his girlfriend raise their kid. And he decided to help his girlfriend raise their kid and abandon his career, basically. So he, instead of going on into research, he abandoned that and he became a physics professor. But he still had in the back of his mind like what would have happened if he continued in that path, until one day he was going from a bar to home, and then a masked man tells him he gets attacked by a masked man, basically, and then he wakes up, and then his wife isn't his wife, his kid is he's nowhere to be seen. His job is he's no longer a physics professor, he's now a researcher, and he does not know what's going on. So these are all the top books I have read in 2024. Let me know what books you think are the best books you've read this year, and as always, I'll see you in another video very soon. Goodbye.